KIDO Talk Radio, Kevin Miller in the morning. Happy President's Day, everyone. That's been our theme today on 107.5 FM, 580 AM. And we're talking to a man that Liberty Linda, she's called it. You're going to be the President of the United States. Tommy Ahlquist joining us.
Yeah, I'm just trying to be the president of my house right now.
Sure. That's
raising kids and having fun. I heard Liberty Linda may have moved out of the great state of Idaho.
Yep, St. George, Utah, but she loves you. She has a book now on Amazon talking about her visions, and she has a vision of you being the President of the United States. That's quite a responsibility.
That's quite a responsibility. Liberty Linda, if you're listening, we love you. Hope you're doing well.
Let's talk a little bit about you. You've become quite the topic on this program when people start talking about the state of government and stuff. Well, you know, if they had gone with my man Tommy, things would be a lot better.
Oh, Kevin, thank heavens. We're having fun, aren't we?
Right.
Podcast, back to business, and sometimes I think about it. It's been, 6, 7, 8 months now. It's kind of like a dream now.
Right.
Like it didn't. I tell you, a lot of people are happy I lost, so we're having a good time, and it's fun to watch what Governor Little's doing. And I think that there's a lot of activity in the legislature right now. It's fun to follow along. And I certainly, after the election, have a different perspective as I watch bills go through and see the legislature do their thing. So it's fun, but I'm glad I'm back in business, I'll tell you, and we're having fun on our podcast.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the podcast because folks have been seeing it on social media. They've been hearing me talk about it. Also, the commercials here on KIDO Talk Radio. Inspire Excellence, a big one. They all seem to be big, but this Ryan DeLuca one is blowing up.
Yeah, Ryan DeLuca. I've known him for a long, long time and admired him as a small business owner for years, over a decade, and getting to know him and Jeremy as friends, and then watching their work ethic. I couldn't wait to have him come on because I can't tell you how many people I've heard tell me, and it's pretty insulting to them, I'm sure. Hey, you got lucky. Ooh. You were lucky enough to get the bodybuilding.com website and URL, and when you did that, the rest was luck. Baloney. I mean, you listen to how hard those guys worked, their vision, their creativity. They understood communities, internet communities, before anyone else did. Smart guys. And I think if you're a young entrepreneur out there building your own business or thinking about starting your own business, listening to that one podcast to Ryan DeLuca, there's a wealth of information there about work ethic and vision and how to pull it all together.
Right, and the whole idea of content and community and commerce, it was just amazing.
It was amazing. Yeah. It's a great, and I think so far we've had a lot of different topics on our podcast. I think it's been fun for me, Kevin, to spend time together and just to ask people, what their thoughts are, what inspires them, and hear about them. We've got some good ones coming up, so it's been a fun experience.
Well, and when you first started saying, "Hey, I want to do a podcast," I'm thinking, well, look, you're usually into global domination, you're into politics, you're hanging out with your family, and now all of a sudden going into the content business. Why?
Well, if you think, and you know this because you interview so many people, there are great stories to be told. And trying to just be part, we're all busy, but if you can connect someone like Ryan DeLuca, so this week's podcast, take Ryan DeLuca and connect him to young entrepreneurs in the Valley. If we have the ability to do that, it's almost kind of an obligation. Once you know enough people, can we be a connecting point? So that's why we're doing it, and it's working. I can't tell you how many emails, texts, calls I've had from people saying, "Hey, listen, I'm a young up-and-coming company, and listening really changed me, inspired me," and it's going around the state. So I think it's been a very worthwhile activity for me, for my time, and if we can keep connecting interesting stories and Idahoans that love this state and love business and love our country and letting them get their word out, I think it's working.
Yeah, everybody has a story, and it's great on that Inspired Excellence podcast to hear and just to let people talk. A few people really love the Mike Moyle, Matt Erpelding one because they just kept going at each other.
They kept going. A couple of times I thought we'd have to jump in, but I think that was a great podcast because I think here you have the two leaders, the guys that really get it done down there, right? And that's why we went and invited them on. If you hear from both sides of the aisle and have them come, I think they drove to the podcast together, right, went home together, and just hearing them go back and forth, it was good. It was also, I tell the story. This last week I gave a talk at the BOMA breakfast. You may meet people who completely disagree with you, but if you listen to them and understand their perspective, there's a lot to be learned. And I had that happen to me several times on the campaign. The story I love telling is Chris Carlson up north. Chris Carlson hammered me hammered me. I mean, he's a journalist. He was the former press secretary for Governor Andrus, an author, a prolific writer, and a smart guy. But I told the story when I first met. I wanted to meet him because he was writing all these things about me and never met me. We met him in a cafe, and I went up and sat down next to him, Kevin, and the first words out of his mouth. I mean, here's a very well respected older, political genius, and he says, "I don't like you, and I'm not ever going to like you." And here are the 3 reasons. And he went through those 3 reasons, and that's how we started our conversation. But by the end of that breakfast, I walked away thinking I can learn something from this guy. I went home and read his books. I read the 2 books that he had out on Amazon, and sent him a little note saying, "Hey, as rough as that meeting went, thank you for meeting with me." Well, by the end of the campaign, when I was back up in St. Mary's, I met him at Zips Drive-In. And you think about, I go, 16 months before that, a breakfast where he says, "I don't like business guys, I don't like Republicans, and I don't like Mormons. And I'm never going to like you." To warm embrace and a friendship in May of last year. And then he passed away just a few months after that. Those are the rich experiences you can have where, even at the end of the campaign, we didn't agree on almost anything. But we had a friendship, we had dialogue back and forth. Boy, I learned a lot from that guy. And so I think that's part of what we're trying to do is getting people together like Moyle, like Erpelding.
Right.
Get them together, let them talk. They're both passionate about Idaho. They just see the world differently. I'm always asked what keeps Idaho, Idaho. I think it depends on who you are, what your perspective is. But we all come together as a community. We all get involved, and we all love this place.
Our great friend Tommy Ahlquist joining us, 107.5 FM, 580 AM, KIDO Talk Radio. But for you, as someone who has achieved so much in life, where do you get that humility? Because most people, you say that to the president, you're done.
I don't know. I think that we get better at it as we get older. I mean, we're all pretty driven and pretty strong-willed. And as I get older, I like to step back and say, hey, what can I learn from this? And if you can check yourself, it doesn't happen all the time, and
Sure.
Sometimes we get going too fast. But if you can check yourself and really say, what did I miss there? What can I learn there? It's amazing what's out there that you can grow from and learn from.
There is so much to talk about, and if I had my way, you'd be here all the time. Because again, your nonprofit giving, what you do behind the scenes, you're a charismatic young man. You're investing here in the Treasure Valley. When you ran for governor, this is a non-political question. And you saw the economic plight of the state, the education infrastructure, perhaps even places for development. Did that help you now in the private sector, just looking at things, going to all these counties again and again and meeting all these decision makers?
Oh, sure. One of the things that keeps me up at night now is I spent most of my time outside the Treasure Valley. That probably, in retrospect, that probably wasn't wise. You look at the election results, and I got hammered here at home. But I did very well in the rural communities because I spent so much time there. But there is a lot of need. And what I love about America is there are opportunities then for businesses to say, how do we go do things that make sense from a business standpoint, but also help people? And if you could ever mirror that up with, hey, what do people need, families need, with what is a business opportunity, that's America, right? That's
Sure.
where things happen. So I think there are a lot of opportunities in rural Idaho for businesses to go take advantage of. The question is, you only have so much time, you only have so much opportunity, but certainly there are relationships that are, I'll give one of them right now. You go to anywhere in rural Idaho and you say, what are your number one needs here in your community? There's no housing. And maybe someone listening out there today, if you could figure out a way to go provide housing, and it may have to be pre-built or prefabbed housing, and just go into these communities just to provide housing, there are housing needs that you could also make money. It's a great, there's business coming into a community. Now you have to do it in a way that it's inexpensive enough that you can get rents that work for community. But I think that's a tremendous opportunity. That's just one example. Healthcare. Right. We're doing some things in healthcare. You talk, people are passionate about the fact they can't afford it anymore. Do I think that the government's going to solve that over the next 20 years of my life? No. Are there ways that with the private sector, with innovation technology, that we can disrupt healthcare and provide quality care at a lower cost that's transparent to people? Yes, so we're going to do it. So I think that's what drives me is what are the way education. We could talk about all of these, but Lorna Finman, who is one of my heroes, she is disrupting education. She will open her first school that is essentially, the only way I can describe it is Uber for education. Take out all the traditional barriers for education. You've got a kid that needs to get educated, and you have a passion for whatever their learning is. How do you make that? You go back to the historical ways that we educate our kids. It goes back all the way to the Industrial Revolution.
Right.
Why we do it, how you march through the curriculum. Education will be disrupted in the next decade in a way that people will have choices, and I don't think that the traditional systems and the traditional mindset is even ready for what's going to come their way with both K-12 education and higher ed. It's exciting.
Speaking of exciting, most of us, well, those of us that have lives, we travel. Most of us that don't, we stay right here. From your
Hey, you just got back from Hawaii. We're not going to feel bad for you or Mrs. Miller right now.
Well, you're
still suntanned. You're still
pink.
Glowing,
Pink.
Smiling.
Yes. As a development, though, we are so Treasure Valley centric. What about Twin Falls with the Magic Valley Miracle and Eastern Idaho? How do you see those areas? Because you're all over the place with your new company, Ball Ventures Allquist. Not new anymore, but you're developing the entire state, the entire region. So are those areas different from what we're experiencing here?
I will tell you, for people in Treasure Valley that don't know Twin Falls, they've got things figured out. And I'll tell you just briefly what they've figured out. If you look at CSI,
right,
and you look at how they've integrated into the community, they've done a phenomenal job of connecting business to kids for education. If you look at their leadership locally in the counties and in the city, they've really spent a lot of time saying, how do we attract businesses and how do we grow? They're doing a great job. And then you over in Eastern Idaho, over here on this side, we don't understand the INL.
Right.
We don't understand that corridor very well. But I always said on the campaign that if there's one area that is just ready to really take advantage of talent, businesses, and the right demographics, it's the Eastern Idaho corridor. And I love President Kevin Satterlee. The smartest thing Idaho State ever did was hiring him. You watch what happens over there. Here you got a visionary leader who's going over there to Idaho State University, taking over for a president that was there for a while, probably just kind of humming along a little bit.
The old coach.
And you're going to see Kevin Satterlee go over there and watch ISU integrate into that side of the state and do some amazing things. So there's a lot of great opportunity. And then we are a tale of kind of different locations. Go up north. I mean, there's a lot of great things happening up in Lewiston, up in Post Falls, Sandpoint, Idaho. I mean, Sandpoint is 10,000 people, but it's the first gigabyte city. They've got companies relocating from all over the place, high-tech companies into Sandpoint. So a lot of great things happening in Idaho. It's a great place to do business, and we have a heritage and culture and work ethic here that people just are attracted to.
Right.
If you come here and you meet the people, you're like, okay, I want to do business.
More coming up with Tommy Allquist here. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. KIDO Talk Radio, Kevin Miller in the morning, 107.5 FM, 580 AM. Tommy Allquist joining us, Dr. Allquist. Before we get back to this, I know you're meeting with a lot of people. I have to go back to you and what has driven you. Okay, early in life, you're a doctor. I don't know the percentage of the population who has the drive, the education, the chutzpah to get there. You're saving lives in the emergency room. And then all of a sudden you go, well, I'm going to do this development thing, so I'm going to work at least 40 hours in the highest stress job out there, and then I'm going to do this. What were you thinking at the time, and how did that come up? I mean, what drives you to do that?
Yeah, I grew up in a very, very blue-collar family, and everyone around me worked hard, and everyone around me worked 2 or 3 jobs. There was a time when my father, when I was a boy growing up, worked as an electrician in a copper mine, pumped gas at a gas station, and framed houses on the side. Worked 3 jobs. I watched him work my whole life. I look at my grandfathers, both of them worked at a copper mine, were very, very blue-collar, hard-working individuals. So for me, you just worked. I had my first businesses when I was in high school. I mean, in high school, I had 2 businesses that were very successful. I had a landscaping business, and I had a commercial cleaning business where I'd go clean office buildings. I did that all through high school, through medical school and undergraduate. I always had 2 or 3 jobs. I sold trophies. I had a trophy making business that I would go sell trophies because it was recurrent revenue. And I didn't want to take loans out. I mean, I looked at the debt you can get in through school, and I thought, I'm not going to, if I can work hard, if I can work 2 or 3 jobs, why not? I did phlebotomy. I didn't even know what a phlebotomist was when I started, but I went in and applied, and I would do 12-hour shifts in the nights on the weekends, and it would allow me to study all night long. And then again, the whole goal here was not taking out any debt. So I came out ready to do some business things. So I've always been wanting to do other things, and I chose emergency medicine. It wasn't an accident because you do shift work, and I knew that, hey, if I do emergency medicine, I can also do business. So I think the first thing that I tell people is, choose something that allows you to follow your passion, and my passion has been to do business. So I started my first technology company right out of residency while I was working in the ER, and then the development thing, it really came as, it's fun. It's really it's a team sport, right? You have to have an entire team around you to put these developments together. And if you remember in the emergency room, it's a team sport. I did all night shifts for the first 10 years. And that team you're around, you have a trauma patient come in, right? So there's nothing that's more nerve-wracking in emergency medicine than having the call from the ambulance and hearing a 8-year-old child crying in an ambulance and knowing that something horrible just happened and that child is going to roll through those doors and depend on you and your team to save them. And a lot of egos will go out the door once you're reliant. The respiratory therapist is as important as the med tech, as important as the nurse. So you go into these rooms with a team of people that you love, right? This is your ER, and that's what it's like on those night shifts. That you develop friendships and teamwork that is unlike in anything. I've done sports, I've done other things, but in the ER you have a team, and you're only as good as the best member of that team. And what's at stake is that 8-year-old kid who's just been hit by a car or some sort of trauma. And so that idea of teamwork is what I love. Well, you get into the business world, guess what? You have a team. You have architects, you have your banks and your financial relationships, you have your engineers, you have all these visionary people that come together to say, hey, what can we do with this thing, and how do we build something out of it? So I think when I started doing Portico, which is right by St. Luke's Meridian, I would get off my night shift in Scrubs and I would drive through that subdivision every morning when I left, and I thought this should be something better. And I just fell in love with it because it was teamwork, it was hard, it was challenging, but you had to bring people together. So there's a lot of things in my past that I think I just feel very blessed that I was given those opportunities to learn and grow and work.
Quick follow-up that, though, on the work-life balance that most people of your ilk seem to struggle with, having a great family and doing all these jobs.
Yeah, I think I had another. I mean, I look at my grandfather, who was my mentor. I mean, this guy was as good as it gets. And I can't tell you how many times under a old willow tree reading a Louis L'Amour book. I mean, he that's where he was.
Right.
And I would lay there by him under that tree, and he would give me the lessons of life. And those lessons were, as much as you love work and as much as you love that, keep God first, love your family, and then work. And if you keep things in that order, you do okay. And that guy, I mean, Kevin, sometimes you're around people that talk too much, and you don't hear much that they say. When my grandpa would talk, you could feel it. I mean, it was that guy, and it wasn't just me. Anyone who knew him knew that when Matt Pedersen talked, you could feel those words. He was just a sincere, genuine guy, and that was my mentor.
Right.
And I look at him and what he taught me about family and putting God first, and remembering that it's not just about money, it's not just about business, it's about taking care of people. That guy did it for me. And when I was on my mission in Brazil, one of the hardest days of my life is I left to go on my mission, and he passed away while I was gone, and he was my mentor. And I never forget, I got the knock at the door, because back then you had mail, right? You didn't have email, you didn't have a way to talk.
Right.
And it was my mission president, and he had said my grandfather had passed away. I still think about that, and I love that guy. I think about him a lot. I think about the lessons he taught me.
Isn't it amazing, though, as you approach his age, the older you get,
oh, yeah,
and that you will one day be imparting those advices?
I think a lot about that, because I'm 51 now, and I look at my kids now and where they are, and I often say to myself, am I so busy in my life? Do I have those Louis L'Amour moments, right, where I'm sitting under a weeping willow tree with my kids or my grandkids someday, laying on the grass, looking at the sky, talking about things that matter, or do I have this thing spinning so fast that I'm not mentoring the way I should be? That's a great question, and I think I need to do better at that.
Tommy Ahlquist joining us, though. It's fascinating, though, as we all age, that you move into that certain demographic where you're the elder statesman. It is fascinating that what your mind goes through in your body, and then you go back to what they were thinking when you were just a little boy. Let's talk about people coming into the Treasure Valley. You're meeting with a lot of folks.
Yeah, I think so Wednesday night went to dinner with a couple of guys that brought their whole team here. And I'll just tell you, it's exciting for me because I went home late that night and just couldn't stop talking to Shanna because I was saying, listen, I mean, one of the things that we've got here is, as I don't think we appreciate, not everywhere in the country has this heritage of work and the way you treat people.
Right.
So I met with these guys from Seattle and San Francisco that have fallen in love with Boise, and they're just like, why would you grow a business anywhere else? And I've said, yeah, but what about this? What about that? What are you doing about talent? And they said, we don't care. The people here are so good and the work ethic is such that we're going to bring these companies here and we're going to bring the talent here and grow businesses in the Treasure Valley. That says a lot for us. So I spent 3 hours with them Wednesday night, and it was fun for me to listen to them talk about Idaho and Idahoans and Boise. And, I think that there's a lot of challenges with that because once we get discovered of what we have here, a lot of people want to be here, but it's also an opportunity for us. I hope we harness that opportunity and use it for good and make sure that we grow in the right ways, but a lot of opportunity coming our ways.
Speaking of opportunities and changing of the guard, you actually scooped Mayor Tammy with her announcement a couple weeks ago. We were joking about that on the air, that a great friend of yours in the community, Mayor Tammy, stepping down. And like I said, you're introducing her, and I go, well, Tommy scooped you your own announcement. She was just laughing about that. It was so funny.
Oh, she's great. I'm going to miss her. People will talk about, as I get older, we're talking about getting older.
Yeah.
As you get older, you can spend a few minutes with somebody and understand. I think of like Reverend Bill. I think of you. I think of Jim Everett that was at the YMCA. In about 5 minutes you're with someone, you can tell if they're authentic, if they're genuine, what motivates them. And I think if you have authenticity that motivates your daily actions, that's a really good place to be. And I look at Mayor Tammy. I've been with her in nursing homes. I've been with her in at the Boys and Girls Club. I've watched her read books to kids. I've watched her cry. And we talk about homeless teenagers in Meridian. We talk about people that don't have food to eat. And I've watched what motivates her. Boy, she's one of the best of the best. We're going to miss her. I'm happy for her and Jan. There's a point in time when you have to just start focusing on a little balance in your life, but what a great leader. What an amazing woman, and I think we're gonna miss her, but hopefully we can take her, what she's taught us and her example, and have leaders like that. We didn't always agree on things either. I mean,
right.
That's that you don't have to agree all the time on how business is done or how things happen, but I'll tell you what we do agree on, and that is how do you take care of people and how do you give back.
Speaking of which, your company, Ball Ventures Ahlquist, you're everywhere right now. What's your plan? I keep telling people that you're assembling an army.
It's so fun right now for me. I think, earlier we talked about that teamwork in an emergency room setting, in a trauma room. We're putting together a great team. I'm humbled by the guys we have, guys and gals we have working for us, where they're coming from, their passion, their vision. And every day I walk into that office now and it's energy. It's enthusiasm. It's optimism. I got a text we hired a guy, Corey Hall. You know Corey Hall, right. Super Bowl champion,
right. Packers,
Fiesta Bowl,
right.
Packers. He came to work for us a couple weeks ago, and he sent me a text last night about 10 o'clock. And I sat and read that text to my wife, and I said, these are the kind of people I want to be with. Kind of people that wake up every morning that want to work their tails off for the right reasons and want to give back and also want to balance things with their family, right? That's the magical balance in life. If you can work hard, enjoy what you do, love what you do, and then also remember God and your family, That's about as good as it gets, and that's what his text was to me. It was a thank you for hey, thank you for letting me be part of this. So I'm pretty excited. We got a great team.
More coming up with Tommy Ahlquist next. You're listening to Kevin Miller on 107.5 FM, 580 AM, KIDO Talk Radio. I do want to remind you, we always have our KIDO Talk Radio newsletter. It's distributed twice a week, and the KIDO Talk Radio app. So you can get that, get the newsletter, find out what's going on. Coming up, much more with Dr. Tommy Ahlquist. I always call you that, but you always like Tommy.
Yeah.
All right. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Kevin Miller in the morning. Hope you're having a happy President's Day. Tommy Ahlquist joining us. Who's your favorite president, by the way?
Reagan, for sure.
Yeah, the Gipper.
Yeah, it was when I was in high school, and just inspirational to watch that guy. So, yeah, for sure. Easy answer.
No, I would agree with Liberty Linda, and I don't mean to pander, so I'll self-report now. I mean, a lot of people say you have Reagan-esque qualities.
In business. We're staying in business. We tried that politic thing once, Kevin. No.
You never know.
That's a tough business. You do it once, and it was good, but it's over.
It was a long journey. Let's talk about medicine and redefining medicine. By the way, you can go to Google Play, the App Store, anywhere you can get podcasts. Inspire Excellence with Tommy Ahlquist, Kevin Miller. Lots of great guests. Congressman Fulcher, Ryan DeLuca, upcoming Kristen Armstrong. A lot of big people talking to you.
Yeah, it's been great. Our lineup's been fantastic, and I think the content's so different that if you're looking for business success stories or politics, a little bit of everything.
Right, and you get to know the people.
Oh yeah,
right. You get to know the people. Medicine. Many people. Your great friend, your biggest supporter, Tea Party Bob, always talking about medicine. And
Tea Party Bob, Tea Party.
He's
Bob.
always looking for you.
Oh yeah, that guy.
So medicine and big pharma, big insurance. Pretty much ruining things. Your thoughts on medicine here in the Treasure Valley?
Yeah, I think the Treasure Valley is a little microcosm of what's happening nationally. If you go back to how we got in this mess, if you go backwards and say, okay, how much of dollars actually hit healthcare, and then what are all the industries that are in between patients and doctors now, and it's become big business. You mentioned a couple of them. PBMs, pharmacy benefit managers. 10 years ago, it didn't exist. An entire industry that is now cutting right into the middle of that. If you talk to a local pharmacist, a neighborhood pharmacist about their business, what's going on right now, they're basically all being put out of business. The transparency on these drugs that we buy, there's nothing there. It's extortion. It's crazy what's going on. Then you go to just the challenge we have of insurance and costs and what it really costs. And then you've got a very hospital-centric delivery system of healthcare. You add all that up, and it's confusing for people. I like to go back to just a few years ago, back when I was the medical director at St. Luke's, and I'd call all the patient complaints. There was pretty much an attitude by most people, this is an overgeneralization, that, hey, I've got a deductible. Once I hit my deductible, I don't really care what it costs because I've hit my deductible. I'll tell you what, that's gone now. Yeah, no matter what your deductible is, if you're getting charged $48,000 for an uncomplicated appendectomy or $52,000 for a shoulder replacement or, $3,700 for an MRI, and right down the street, it's $600, you care. You care. So I'm a firm believer that in a couple of things. First of all, technology has not even begun to disrupt the way we deliver healthcare in America, and it will, and I want to be part of that. Meaning, if you look at every other industry and how technology has made it more efficient and easier to have transparency and be delivered healthcare, we should have technology. So what am I talking about there? You should know, Kevin. If you know your insurance and you know the contract with that facility where you're going, they know what it's going to cost when you go there. You just don't know. That's an app. That's an application that we're working on right now where you should know.
Right.
You put in what your insurance is. You put in what you need done. It's going to be pretty easy to be very transparent on what the cost is. I believe if consumers know what things cost and know quality, they're going to make good choices. And I think we're going to deliver care in a different way.
A few thoughts on that. I was talking to, our great friend Shaw, an Eagle pharmacist. He's been there forever.
Yeah.
He does great work. Awesome work. Everybody loves Shaw. But he's concerned about the future of it. Then you have the mail order pharmaceuticals. And then you have the idea that the insurance company knows more than a doctor like you or the pharmacist. Because they want to cut costs, they want to have the margins. So we're going to put you on this medication, even though your doctor wants you on this one.
That's right. It's a mess. And Shaw you talk about a hardworking, good guy, community-based entrepreneur.
Right.
And he's worried. I actually talked to him last week. He's worried about how long he can stay in business and just survive the.
And I'm going, Shaw, what are you thinking?
I know this is Shaw. Although I understand Shaw. I don't know if we've ever talked about this, but I opened and owned a pharmacy for 3 years.
Okay.
Never do that again. You talk about a business that is under attack by regulation and big business and these PBMs and these deals. I do not know how these guys survive. That's just not right. And you look at the cost of those drugs that come through and you study what happens. Do you know that by regulation sometimes you have to buy a drug in a pharmacy and sell it for less, oftentimes 10, 20, 30% less than you bought it for? Just by it's a hard business because of the overregulation and because it is this big business involvement. So anything we can do, whether it's from the drug side, it's the provider side, if it's the payment side, the insurer side, to simplify it, to give choice to. I mean, you go back to any other business. It's choice, transparency, quality.
Sure,
that ought to drive our decisions, and it's been. I don't think it's anyone's particular fault. It's just been the way it's kind of like a truck that went off the road at some point.
Sure.
It just keeps going further into the ditch, and I don't know how you get it back out without some real disruption.
Well, we're going to make you the czar of medicine right now, Tommy Ahlquist, on KIDO Talk Radio. If Governor Little or President Trump asks you to take a look at medical reforms in this state or in the country, you have healthcare providers say, look, we have to have these markups, we have to have these margins, we have to stick it to people because we lose so much when people come in with no insurance. And then, again, you talked about it on the campaign, you talk about it now, people losing everything just to get treated for medicine. So how do you balance good business with these enormous markups?
So the number one thing that everyone should understand is that primary care should be affordable and accessible for people. And instead of having primary care cost so much and making it so difficult, the story I like telling is there are 17 different community health centers around Idaho. I visited almost all of them. The one locally here is Terry Riley. The one up in Coeur d'Alene is great. The one in Moscow is great. If you go visit these care centers, they provide primary care at such affordable rates that if we could get back to delivering care at what it costs and preventing illness, then you're always going to need hospitals. You're always going to have illnesses. And heaven forbid you get a chronic illness or cancer or something that's super expensive to treat. But the problem is we've set up the whole system, the entire infrastructure, to deliver it in this expensive, bureaucratic, thick, it's just an expensive way to deliver it. We need to change that, and I think that will happen over time. I think what we've needed to have as a country, you've needed to have this pendulum swing so hard to where people are just frustrated. They're just upset. Look at the health ministries and the insurance. As soon as you get that choice back to the patient to drive dollars and where they're going, that's going to be the answer. And then big business and government can respond. But a lot of changes, and hopefully we can do some of those here in the Treasure Valley.
Well, then, I'll even though we're not officially sanctioned by the vaunted Idaho Press Club and they kicked Tea Party Bob out before he got in, let me ask you the follow-up. You've acquired Salzer, and you can say stuff, you can't say stuff. What's your vision for them? Obviously, they've been in the news a lot the past 3 years.
Yeah, so what I love about our Salzer acquisition is here's a group of doctors that are truly community-based, been there a long time. They've been through a lot. But if you look at the metrics on how they care for patients, how they deliver primary care, they are a fantastic group of doctors. I can't wait to work with them. For them and for the Salzer Medical Group, it's going to be continuing doing what they do best. Joseph Salzer was a physician, and back when he started the group, it was a doctor-patient relationship. We're going to go back to our roots with Salzer and focus on primary care. I think you're going to see a lot of transparency in what we do and an ability for patients to actually know, okay, here's my cost choices, here's my quality choices. And we're going to grow that group from a primary care group up, so that
Right.
we're going to really focus on primary care prevention. We're going to try to get as many Medicaid patients and Medicare patients as we can into our group and take care of them. And we're going to try to focus back on community. You know, I always remind people in Nampa, it's an unbelievable statistic. There are 3,500 homeless kids in the Nampa School District. There's a lot of need out there. So the fact that Salter is Canyon County based and that's where it's grown up, we're super excited to help that community. We're super excited to give back and to change the way primary care is delivered.
Now, a cynic, which I would be a part of the club, sir, would say we have too many hospitals right now. I mean, we're building all these hospitals. You talked a little bit about differentiating the service from what we have now, but here's the again a softball. Don't we have too many hospitals already?
Yeah, I don't. So what we're talking about is building primary care and not hospitals. And I think the hospitals we have here are great. If you look at the quality of care we receive, both St. Al's, St. Luke's, and HCA and Caldwell, they do an amazing job. We have great delivery of high quality care in Idaho. The question is, for outpatient care and primary care, can we deliver it at where it's affordable and also match that quality?
Tommy Alquist joining us here. Kevin Miller in the morning on KIDO Talk Radio, 107.5 FM, 580 AM. Where do you see the medical community within the next 5 years? We've seen incredible growth. We talk about Canyon County, West Valley, Salter. Now you've got St. Luke's. Took them a while to get there. They're there now. St. Al's took them a while to get there. They're there now. Canyon County getting very, very competitive.
Competition's great, and I think that I think as long as there's more transparency on costs in our marketplace,
Yeah.
as long as there's choice for people, I think that you know they just were there's a new regulation that just passed that you have to print and tell people what it's going to cost for their visits. I love that. Get transparency, get quality out there. Let's get innovation and technology. I think whoever can disrupt the way we currently deliver care is going to do very, very well, and I think everyone's racing to that. That's good for consumers. I think it's that competition's good, and as we disrupt and bring technology into the way we deliver healthcare, that's going to be great for everyone in the state.
More coming up with Tommy Alquist here. Kevin Miller in the morning, 107.5 FM, 580 AM. Don't forget, coming up later on in the day, it'll be our friend Dave Ramsey who will teach you how to spend more and actually save more and spend less. It doesn't work if you do it the other way. In addition to that, Sean Hannity and Lars Larson. Coming up tomorrow, we'll be joined by Lars Larson. Looking forward to hearing what he has to say, and we'll ask him about his interview with Ann Coulter last week. You're listening to Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. KIDO Talk Radio, Kevin Miller with Tommy Alquist. 107.5 FM, 580. You know, you're very, for a Generation Xer, you know, and you should be proud of that. As am I. You know, we're kind of that victim generation. You know, you got the boomers. As kids, all we ever heard about were boomers. And then when our times come, we were replaced by the millennials.
They forgot us, Kevin.
Yes.
Don't you forget forgotten?
Yeah, I do.
The forgotten generation. Can we rename it? The forgotten generation.
I would say, but you're very pro-millennial. You talk to these folks, your campaign, you recruit for a Generation Xer, and you know they look at us like the old people, even though we may not think we're the old people. But these millennials, is that an untapped value that some of us are missing?
Oh yeah, if you're not, I'll tell you what. There's every day in our office, when no matter what we talk about, you do have these two, demographics rule the world, and you've got baby boomers that are going to consume. They've consumed more and use more than any generation, and they're going to continue to. And they're aging now to where they're going to consume a lot. But then on the other end, you got these millennials. You better understand both. And for whatever your business is, and we talk a lot about it, whether it's office buildings or healthcare, you better know how to attract and retain those two demographics. So yeah, you better be paying attention to millennials. They do think differently. They're not, I think one of the mistakes that we're making is that we're treating them all the same. Like, oh, they all think this. They all do that. That's not true. But they have grown up with technology. They understand disruption. They understand the way things could be if you took down traditional barriers. So no matter what business you're in, you better understand that the way they look at the world and the way they look at access and the way they look at spending their dollars is different than that baby boomer generation. And I think those companies that are the most successful are those that are going to be able to understand that for both of those demographics.
Sure, but again, most of us, when we're interacting with people, maybe we think of ourselves in a different light. But to be that senior person in the room around all these young people, I was at a class yesterday, and at the age of 51, I'm around a bunch of 20-year-olds. It's a fascinating learning experience.
It is a learning experience. And that's that. My kids are in that generation, right? So I love my son-in-law, Matthew, who does a lot of work for us. He is a millennial in his thinking, in his actions, and I love being around the guy. I love asking him, "Hey, what do you think about this?" And I'll tell you, most of the time, it's completely different than I would have predicted. I love that. How he markets, how he talks to people, how he, how you're going to use technology to drive business. And he has a very entrepreneurial mind. So yeah, I love it. I love being around these guys because what they think about the world and how we access the world is just different than us. And there's a lot to learn from it.
Inspire Excellence podcast, available App Store, Google Play, all over. We've got about 2 minutes left. Who would you like to interview?
Oh, we got a good list. I think while we've been sitting here, I can't wait to interview Dr. Kustra. If he's listening out there, we're going to try to get him on soon. I would love to hear what he's doing and his opinions on state education, especially higher education. I can't wait to interview Brad at some point and understand, hey, you won, you're in there, how's it going?
Right.
And then I think there's a lot of national people. I would love to get as many people as we can in with different opinions about what's happening in the country. A good friend of mine, I won't disclose it, but I was with lunch with him Wednesday, just spent a month on the border. Thought to himself, hey, I don't want to just read about what's going on. Went down and spent a month on the entire border. I'd love to interview people like that are actually out there digging down and finding out what's going on.
Here, I thought you'd say President Trump.
We'd take President Trump, wouldn't we, Kevin?
We would. We wouldn't be saying much.
We wouldn't be saying much.
No, we wouldn't be saying much. Tommy Ahlquist, any other thoughts that you like? Here, let's give you the last 30 seconds. A note of inspiration to inspire others.
Yeah, I think, Kevin, at the end of each one of our podcasts, we ask the question, what inspires you? And we've had some great answers. I think that for everyone in this community, what we love about it most is that people love this state. They love this community. And I think it's a great place to be inspired if you look for that. There's so much negativity in the world. There's so much pessimism.
I wouldn't know anything about that.
Yeah, you wouldn't on your show.
Right.
But it's nice to look forward and say how do we bring people together, even if you disagree on some of the basic fundamentals of where we're headed. What do we have in common, and what inspires you, and how do we make this a great place to live?
Tommy, thank you.
Thanks. It's great.
Thanks for being here.
It's always great to. Yeah, thanks for being here, Kevin. That's great.
Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio.